Karen spills hot tea on my black Indian cousin, saying he's unfit for the neighborhood. Late afternoon found me helping my cousin Rohan adjust his tie before the community tea social at our neighbor's patio. Rohan, newly arrived from Mumbai, had mastered the art of polite greeting and warm conversation. His dark eyes shone with nervous excitement as he greeted Mrs. Alvarez and Mr. Chen, neighbors who had embraced him. The sky glowed peach as I poured steaming chai into delicate porcelain cups. Then Karen Peterson swept across the lawn like a hawk. Her heels clicked on the flagstone path as she approached our table, clipboard in hand and a scowl on her perfectly powdered face. "Excuse me," she snapped, voice low but sharp. "I hear we have an unvetted guest." She pointed at Rohan. "You, sir, what is your purpose here? You're clearly not fit for this neighborhood." Rohan froze, cup trembling in his hand. He managed a polite bow. "I am Rohan Singh. My family just moved in next door. I'm honored to join this gathering." Karen's lips curled. "I don't care where you came from. You have no business mingling here without clearance. This is a private event. You should leave." She grabbed the teapot from the table, its porcelain painted with cherry blossoms, and flung its contents. Scalding tea arced through the air, soaking Rohan's shirt and burning his forearm. His cry pierced the air. Everyone recoiled. I leapt forward and dragged Karen's hand away from the teapot, spilling the rest across her crisp blouse. Rohan stumbled back, clutching his arm. Smoke rose from his sleeve where the hot liquid sizzled. His eyes filled with pain and humiliation. "Karen!" I shouted. "What have you done?" She shook free, mascara smearing down her cheeks, and threw the empty teapot at my feet. "I'm enforcing order," she spat. "I won't have outsiders spoiling our community." Rohan staggered, his voice shaky. I'm sorry, I didn't," but tears rolled down his face. Mrs. Alvarez rushed to his side, ripping off her shawl to wrap his burning arm. "Call an ambulance," she cried. I knelt beside Rohan, pressing a damp napkin to the burn. His skin reddened in angry patches. I dropped to one knee, meeting his eyes. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "You didn't deserve this." Neighbors gathered, shock and anger etched on every face. Behind me, Karen stood frozen, staring at her hands as if realizing the gravity of her violence for the first time. A trembling hush blanketed the patio. Moments later, sirens wailed. Paramedics arrived, gently removing Rohan to the ambulance. I climbed in beside him, holding his hand as they dressed the burn with cooling gel. "You'll be all right," I said, voice thick with guilt. His gaze met mine, trust still shining through his tears. As the ambulance pulled away, I saw Karen shrinking behind the hedge, her clipboard abandoned on the ground. The party guests clustered together, support and outrage mingling in the fading light. That night, I sat at my desk drafting a formal complaint to the HOA board, attaching photos of Rohan's burns and the teapot strewn on the lawn. I demanded Karen's immediate suspension and apology. But as I hit send, my heart ached for Rohan's pain and the quiet betrayal of our own community's promise of welcome. The morning after the attack, our home felt hollow. Rohan sat at the breakfast table in a hospital gown, the burn on his forearm wrapped in sterile gauze. He winced as he lifted a mug of lukewarm water. I poured a cup of ginger tea, cooler this time, and set it before him. His dark eyes, once bright with excitement, were shadowed by pain and humiliation. "Thank you," he managed, voice rough. I brushed a lock of hair from his forehead. "I'm so sorry this happened." Rohan forced a small smile. "I should have known better than to attend an HOA event alone." His lip quivered. "I don't want them to think I come from some lawless place." My chest tightened. Yesterday's neighbors had clustered behind me, outrage etched on their faces. Mrs. Alvarez comforted him, Mr. Chen offered rides, and even the bus driver pledged testimony. Still, Rohan felt exposed, like a stranger under a microscope. I opened my laptop and pulled up our initial complaint to the HOA board. The local Human Rights Commission forwarded it to the county prosecutor's office. I scrolled through an email notifying me of a preliminary hearing next week. Rohan's burn was classified as a Class B assault, enough to press charges. "Rohan," I said quietly, "you need to tell them everything." He nodded, resolve flickering. "I will, but first I have something to confess." I frowned. He drew a breath. "I'm not just a newcomer. I'm a human rights attorney from Mumbai, here to advise on our city's new anti-discrimination ordinance." His gaze met mine. "I've fought cases like this, protected civil rights across continents. I came here thinking I could start fresh, but I realize now I have the power to make a difference." My heart raced. The plot twist struck like lightning. Our guest of honor was armed with legal expertise far beyond any neighborhood rivalry. Karen hadn't merely insulted him, she'd attacked someone who could dismantle the entire system she represented. That afternoon, I escorted Rohan to the HOA office. A cluster of residents formed a protective cordon as we approached. Karen sat behind the reception desk, clipboard in hand, flanked by the board president and two officials. Their faces tightened when they recognized Rohan. "I understand you're an attorney," Board President Morales began, voice strained. "But our bylaws." Rohan stood slowly, braces clicking under his hospital gown. He raised a hand. "Bylaws do not justify assault or racial discrimination." His voice clear and strong. He placed his bandaged arm on the counter. "This bruise will testify in court. I demand an immediate apology, full medical compensation, and disciplinary action against Karen Peterson." The room fell silent. I felt neighbors' eyes on us, some nodding, others blinking in surprise. Then Rohan laid out the law: federal and state civil rights statutes, hate crime provisions, HOA liability laws. He cited Supreme Court precedents on equal access and non-discrimination in private associations. His tone was persuasive, rooted in compassion for vulnerable communities. Karen's clipboard slipped from her grasp. She stared at the papers, confusion and fear mingling in her expression. Under Rohan's expertise, the board president realized the depth of their liability. Morales exchanged a glance with the officials, lips pressed in a grim line. "Counselor Singh," Morales said at last, voice tight, "we will comply with your demands. Effective immediately, Karen Peterson is suspended from all HOA duties pending review. We will publicly apologize and cover all your medical and legal fees." Morales hesitated, then extended a white envelope. "This contains an apology letter and a check for your medical expenses." Rohan accepted it, then turned to me. "Let's see them enforce that suspension." His wry smile returned, defiance shining in his eyes. As we left, neighbors applauded softly. Mrs. Alvarez hugged Rohan, tears filling her eyes. I felt a surge of pride and relief. The twist had turned the tide. Karen's hostility had unleashed the very force she'd sought to suppress, a champion of justice in our midst. That evening, we returned home under a golden sunset. Rohan's laughter returned as we planned his birthday dinner. No more HOA teas for at least a year. The barbecue was now ours to host, and everyone was invited. The morning of the grand reopening of our cul-de-sac's block party dawned crisp and bright. After yesterday's dramatic HOA showdown, neighbors buzzed with excitement to reclaim our shared space. Rohan, his burn now wrapped in fresh bandages, joined the planning committee with renewed vigor, his legal expertise having neutralized Karen's suspension order. I handed him a stack of invitation flyers, embossed with vibrant marigolds, then paused to admire a new banner: "Unity in Diversity, all welcome here." As crowds began to gather around picnic tables laden with homemade curries, tacos, and coleslaw, I noticed Karen Peterson standing alone by the hedge, her clipboard abandoned on the ground. She wore a stiff skirt and a forlorn expression. I approached her gently. "Karen," I said, voice calm, "thank you for stepping back yesterday." She frowned, eyes downcast. I lost control," she whispered. "I'm sorry." Her confession surprised me. This was the first time she'd owned her misconduct. I reached out. "If you truly regret it, help us welcome Rohan today. We need every hand." She blinked, hesitation warring with shame. Finally, she nodded. "I'll try." We returned to the party together, where Rohan stood greeting guests at the gate, his sturdy presence a testament to resilience. That afternoon, Karen timidly offered to refill water pitchers. She surprised neighbors by serving chai from her own pot, this time cool and sweet. When Rohan accepted with a nod, the crowd cheered. He smiled gratefully. For a fleeting moment, the woman who hurt him and the man she targeted stood side by side in service of the community. Just as the sun tilted low, a sudden commotion erupted at the far end of the block. A stray dog had bolted into the party, snarling at children. Guests panicked. Rohan stepped forward, but his bandaged arm dripped with blood from a minor scrape when he intervened. Before he could react, Karen dived between the dog and the children, luring it away with her scarf. The dog chased her, only to be caught by her practiced, purposeful hold. "Sit," she commanded, eyes fierce. Time slowed. The dog halted, tail wagging. Karen knelt and stroked its ears. Neighbors whooped their approval. In that moment, she risked herself to protect the very families she'd once threatened. Rohan and I exchanged astonished glances. Later, as the dog was safely returned to its owner, Karen returned, panting but triumphant. She approached Rohan's table and offered her hand, the same hand that once poured hot tea. Rohan met her gaze and shook it firmly. "Thank you for saving them," he said. Karen's eyes brimmed with tears. "I'm sorry," she repeated. "I truly am." A hush fell, then applause rose, genuine, forgiving. The plot twist. Karen's blind hatred had transformed into selfless heroism. In saving others, she found her own redemption. That evening, as lanterns glowed, Rohan and I sat with Karen beneath the oak tree. He raised his teacup. "To second chances," he toasted. Karen blinked away tears, then smiled, a real, unforced smile. I raised mine. "To community." The day of the HOA ethics hearing arrived under overcast skies that mirrored the gravity of Karen's past actions. The local community center's main hall filled with families, board members, and city officials. Rohan and I sat in the front row. His injury healed enough for him to wear a crisp button-down, his arm now protected by a lightweight sleeve. Karen entered, flanked by her legal counsel, her expression guarded. The hearing opened with formal statements. The board president outlined the charges: assault, hate speech, and abuse of HOA authority. She listed evidence: Rohan's signed testimony as a civil rights attorney, the doorbell camera footage of the hot tea incident, and Karen's own bruised authority. Each exhibit underscored the premeditated nature of Karen's offense. Next, I took the stand. "Karen's actions nearly changed my cousin's life forever," I said, voice steady. "She targeted him with hate masked as enforcement. Yet today, we celebrate how compassion and courage prevailed." I paused, looking at Karen. She redeemed herself by saving our children from harm, but the law must hold her accountable. Rohan followed, delivering a powerful civil rights lecture. He cited state hate crime statutes and federal anti-discrimination laws. His closing words carried weight. "When private power is weaponized, democracy dies. Our community must ensure no one repeats her mistakes." Karen's defense attorney attempted mitigation, stress, misunderstanding, but the judge remained unmoved. "Miss Peterson," she addressed Karen, "your apology and bravery in the face of danger are noted, but they do not erase your deliberate assault. Justice demands consequences." The judge ruled Karen would serve 120 hours of community service, working at a local women's shelter, complete mandatory diversity and disability awareness training, and pay a $7,500 fine toward Rohan's medical and legal expenses. Additionally, her HOA enforcement privileges were permanently revoked. As deputies presented Karen with her sentencing orders, neighbors recorded the moment. Karen's face paled as she signed the documents. A hush fell, then applause echoed, this time official recognition that accountability had been served. Weeks later, the community garden bore new plaques commemorating unity through accountability, a reminder of lessons learned. Rohan led a community seminar on civil rights while Karen, clad in a shelter volunteer's apron, distributed meals. She met my gaze and offered a sincere nod of gratitude for the chance to atone. At our cul-de-sac seasonal festival, Rohan and I watched families of every background enjoy games and food stalls. The tea pavilion stood open, with cool refreshments, and a sign read, "All friends welcome here." Karen stood nearby, helping her former adversary, Mrs. Alvarez, serve lemonade. No longer an enforcer of fear, she had become a guardian of community. As dusk settled, Rohan turned to me. "This is what justice can look like," he said softly. I nodded. Redemption earned, trust restored. We raised our cups, ginger tea and lemonade, brimming with relief and hope. The end.